Well, hello everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome back to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And yes, we've had a little bit of a break time. I was off last week and I am delighted to see beautiful Andi Bond again. Also, spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. So I am so happy that you're back. Welcome, beautiful. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very honored to be back. Thank you, Chantel. I'm doing well, just kind of hanging in there with all of these crazy things that we're going through as a civilization and as humanity. So I'm doing my best to navigate that, but
That's for sure. We were just having a little off-air chat before, and we were just talking about the things happening in the background of both our lives at the moment, and not just us. This past week seems to have really brought up a lot of stuff for people to deal with, you know.
Mhm.
So I like to be challenged now and again. I'm certainly being challenged right now, but it's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing. I do believe it's here to make us stronger, expand our wingspan, so to speak, and just enjoy
Mhm.
life. Because as we know, we are in the hopscotch here. There's the hop, skip, and jump going on all over right now, right? So, but that's why
Absolutely.
it's just so amazing and beautiful to have people like you in my life, even though you are far. You're very
Mhm.
near.
Mhm.
And I'm loving our conversations as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, in the past couple of weeks, we were speaking about the Eastern teachings, the infiltration of the Eastern teachings. We can maybe even expand on that if we have time or information or whatever. We will get into that because we know that Christianity has been the main infiltrator actually, and has also been obviously infiltrated the heaviest, I think, of all the religions. And all the denominations have been infiltrated. So we're looking
Mhm.
at the Dalai Lama, we're looking at Sadhguru. Those are the two well-known ones that I know of. Apparently, Gandhi was
Mhm.
also uh, not quite kosher. I don't even know what to call it. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's just lovely to have you, Andy. So today we're going to be talking about Sanskrit. I mean,
Mhm.
I know I've always called it the holy language and the sacred
Mhm.
language, but it's not a language as you're going to explain to us. I've just had such a good time listening to some of your stuff on that. It is just resonating second to none. And then also we're going to talk about just an introduction to the Vedic teachings. So I'm really looking forward to that. So
Mhm.
enough babbling from me. Over to you, beautiful woman. And how's it been? Are you good? I mean, is there anything you want to tell us, share with us before you get going?
Um, I things are good, like I said, it seems in the past week or so, across so many things, people that I've talked to, clients, students, um, just friends, family. There's been a lot of things that have come out of left field for people, and it's bringing up, I mean, even in my own personal experience, it's bringing a lot from the past, that's sort of unresolved. And so I do see that happening just everywhere around. And it seems to me, at least in my experience, what it's the sort of effect that we're going through, or that I've been going through and witnessing others go through, is that any unhealed wounds or trauma from almost the last 20 years or so seem to be, if it's still in there in your body and your mind and your soul and your spirit, it's
So
coming to the surface. And so it's been
I'm loving it. I'm loving what you're saying because it's so true. I was actually listening to a podcast not too long ago where this is exactly what they were talking about. And at that stage, I had just come through feeling very unhappy about some family dynamics, that I felt like I was a child again. I felt like I wanted to tantrum within every cell of my being, and I couldn't really understand what was going on. And then I meditated. I just said, what is this? This is very unusual. And then, literally the next day, I was listening to this podcast where they were talking about life being like a spiral, and where we're at now with our evolutionary process, if you will. We are like going back to the beginning. So even if it's past lives, even if it's childhood traumas, everything, it's like we being faced with those obstacles again, and it's
Mhm.
not really true, and we must just remember that. We've been given an opportunity to clear that. And
Mhm.
that's really what's happening. And it's so true. It's like stuff from the past. I mean, I had to do massive dental work this week. I can't tell you how much past stuff that brought up for me. So I was woman down and just releasing and processing and just raising our frequency. And I think that is so important. And it's really, I'm actually almost relieved I'm not alone in this, Andy. Thank you for being there with me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I apologize. There's a little construction going on next door. If you guys hear any of the noise in the background, I hope it's not too distracting. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, it is nice to at least know you're not alone. But this brings me to one of the tools that I have used in my path of healing from trauma. You know, along my journey, basically I've had the opportunity to experience and utilize different modalities, different therapies, different practices for trauma, and some of them work and some of them really don't work. And one of the reasons that I love this knowledge that I had the blessing and the honor to really dive very deeply into with some incredible teachers across the planet is because it's one of the most useful tools that I've had in my journey of recovery. And um, so when when I came across these teachings and these practices, first of all, it was very difficult to discover the actual knowledge and where it came from. And so it really led me on a journey around the world. um, but but it was worth it. I think it was really worth it. So the first thing that I like to really explain to people is that as far as the knowledge that comes from the Vedas is where it comes from, and it comes from very 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 ancient India, very
can you
ancient.
explain to us what the Vedas are? If you can maybe just explain to our viewers and just give us a 101 as to what the Vedas are, please.
Yeah, well, that's something that you could spend an entire lifetime diving into, but
Yeah.
so the way that I received the knowledge and learned the knowledge was according to a very ancient oral tradition and lineage of teachings and knowledge, and called the Shankaracharya tradition, and it traces back all the way to ancient India, um, and that time period. From my understanding, although there is some debate, you know, but it's a civilization that existed approximately 20,000 to 50,000 BC. So this was a very different civilization than the civilization that we live in, and the understanding even is that our awakened state as humanity seems to have been more in alignment with the laws of nature, the basic laws of, God's laws of nature at that time than we are now. Um, But the Vedas, essentially what they are, is the lines of code that underlie all of nature. And yeah, after the reason that I started to delve so deeply into the knowledge and I just kept studying and learning more and more is because I have this really interesting science and spirituality or dual obsession with science and God my entire life. And when I came across this knowledge, the understanding of quantum physics and quantum mechanics was so so much more advanced than what it is in today's quote unquote modern science. Uh, and the way that even down to the quantum level, the nature of our reality is explained is identical to what's being quote unquote discovered in modern day quantum physics experiments and things like that. Um, and so that really had my attention.
Yeah.
um, and so basically what the Vedas, the mythology or the story of how the Vedic knowledge was um, received or by humanity, basically, is that the original teacher is referred to as Adhi Yogi, and there were 7 basically students that he had that he kind of delivered the knowledge to. And it's said that they did this by going into a state of very deep meditation, um, where they were able to see and perceive all of the subtle laws of nature. And the first thing that they were sort of given really is this technology of Sanskrit. And the technology of Sanskrit is the actual uh, sound and light codes that underlie all of creation. So, quantum physics is a big word. It scares some people, but
Yeah.
really it just means the study of things on a very small scale. So, if you break apart an atom, what's inside of an atom? You know, when I was going through school and through the Rockefeller system, we'll just say, we were taught that there were these solid particles, you know, within that were basically inside and made up the nucleus of an atom. But further studies into quantum physics, string theory, which then advanced into something called M theory, have explained that the actual when you break apart an atom, it's not solid actually. That there are what are sort of explained as strings of energy that vibrate at different frequencies and have different patterns. Um, and so this is what these teachers said. They went into this state of very deep meditation and they observed. It was observation really of the patterns and the sounds that correspond with all of the laws of nature. And
Wow.
so essentially what Sanskrit itself is the breakdown of the pure sounds that exist in nature, and those sounds we actually can create in our own body, you know.
Wow. Hang on. That is amazing. So I want to just repeat that, and I think just let that settle in. And for our viewers as well, this is something very important, I think. So, what you're saying is Sanskrit is the breakdown of the sounds of nature. Wow.
Yes.
Because I always look at that and I say nature is God in action. Because when you look at how a tree grows from a seed to this massive oak tree, it's how we require the same things, maybe a little bit more complex, but nonetheless. So we take our guidance from nature. And it's the same way that the yogis then in the ancient times would have gone to study yoga outside. They observed nature, animals, sacred geometry, all of these things. And like even when you're looking at the yoga postures, right? They're based on nature, which is amazing. So
Hmm.
I love that. I just have
Hmm.
to say, so Sanskrit is the breakdown of the sounds of nature.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
it's a technology, not a language, as you say. That makes perfect sense to me now.
Yeah.
Why it's a technology and not a language? Because everything is sound, frequencies, and vibration. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to understand this. Because everything is sounds, frequencies, and vibrations in your body. So when your
Hmm.
body is harmonized with God or source energy, the sounds of nature and the sounds of Sanskrit, which really are interchangeable then, will
Hmm.
harmonize with who you are, and that will offset that frequency into the universe. So you become like a echo almost, right?
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. You've said so many things that I want to break down even more, but absolutely. The the process of understanding this knowledge is the technology of the knowledge is you start to see that our even our physical bodies were designed as a resonance chamber, and that when you make these sounds that correspond to the most sort of pure, subtle, just pure laws of nature, um, it actually you can rewire the nervous system. So it's very powerful. Not only that, but like I was saying, the Sanskrit corresponds to these subtle sounds and patterns that you find in nature. So the laws of nature are God's laws. There's cosmic law that it doesn't matter what you believe. It just one thing. The way that our universe and cosmos are currently designed in this universe that we are currently inhabiting in physical form, there are patterns and laws of nature established. So um, just like the when you bring it down to the basics of the elements of fire, water, earth, and air, and then the fifth element, which is understood to be God's consciousness that flows through all of it, is actually the fifth element. Um,
Isn't that
that
ether? Would that not be ether?
yeah, yeah,
So,
that
yeah.
that there is a spark of divinity. God has his fingerprints on everything, and that these laws of nature actually operate under a, in a specific mathematical pattern, and you can see things that are repeated, and not only that, but you can hear and measure the actual sound and light frequency and pattern that underlies different things that we see in the material world. So
Can I just also say what's sorry, just on that note, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. One of our viewers is saying that that is what DMT users see, which is obviously the plant medicine, when they take the three deep hits, lines of code on everything. So that is, again, I think it's just such beautiful
yeah,
confirmation saying,
it's
right? So,
very okay. So I'm going to go on that for a second because I love this audience because people are so awake. Um,
yes.
so first of all, so if you think of everything in nature, everything, even down to water, down to plants, different fabrics, even different emotional states, okay, have a specific pattern that equals that thing. There just so everything is sound and light vibrating in patterns, right? So if you look and listen to water, for example, on the most subtle level, there's a pattern of light and sound that corresponds to water. Okay. The word in Sanskrit replicates that pattern. So the word
Wow.
is, yeah. So it's not a label of the thing. It's the
Vibration.
vibration and the actual pattern. So if the whole universe is sound and light, you can think of it like a cosmic symphony, right? And there's each little thing has its musical pattern, musical sound that goes with it. And when we are able to, so what the yogis or what the ancient teachers and students basically saw by observation from this very connected state of being in the heart, the the real center from the ancient teachings, not only the Vedic teachings but the Cherokee teachings, talk about the actual brain, quote unquote, the that's connected to divine and to the one creator of all of the universes. That intelligence actually resides in the heart center, in the
Mm.
we've confused the brain, which is kind of like the computer that labels and judges, with the actual intelligence of the heart. And so it's from this sort of connected where you really where what they it's explained the way that the Vedas, it when you actually try to read the Vedas, no. First of all, I'd like to explain it like looking at the lines of code. It operates very much like binary code. So binary code are the ones and the zeros that make up everything that you see on your computer as software or as a picture or a video. So the actual data of the ones and zeros is the binary code that equals what we see on the screen. Okay. If I were to, as just a layman, go and look at a line of code that is literally creating this podcast, it would not mean anything to me at all. The Vedas are kind of like that. It's like the lines of code that underlie nature, really. And then the sciences that come out of that are like the software that allows you to understand it and see how it sort of functions. But the first piece of the puzzle that the whole thing is based on is Sanskrit, which is an actual technology. Okay, and there are two sort of main rules about how Sanskrit works. One is that the meaning and the feeling are the same. This is very different from our Western learning also.
Yes, so
So
you got to, it's integrity, right? Wouldn't that be then speaking or expressing yourself with integrity? Because if you've got the meaning and the feeling both the same, you're expressing from a true place. Would you
yeah,
agree with that? Wow.
yes, it sort of is a result of it. So the way the language works is in accordance with the meaning. So, and the really incredible thing that, remember, our bodies really are kind of like our sound resonance chamber, is that our bodies are constructed in a way that sounds actually live in specific parts of the physical body that
Yes.
echo all of these basic sounds, um, that are like the sonic building blocks of life and nature. So we can align ourselves with a song. Really, that's what we're doing vibrationally, and what we're constantly putting out some sort of vibration. Either it's fear, we're singing the
Yes.
song of fear through our life, through our experience, through our words, through our heart, through everything, or we are aligning ourselves with our free will to say a different song of compassion or patience or integrity or truth. but those sounds actually have a science to them. And the best way I can explain, so the whole language is like this, that when you start to learn how to pronounce the sounds, the meaning is evident. So it's completely
Okay.
backward. Okay.
You'll
So
get the sound, you'll get the sound right if you feel the meaning first.
they're the same thing. So here's the
Yeah.
first thing that I'll explain. So there there's two vowels in Sanskrit. There's a short A that's pronounced Make that sound in your body. Uh.
Uh,
Go ahead and do that.
uh,
Uh.
uh.
In order to make that sound, it requires constriction.
Yeah.
It requires your body to constrict. And it's right here. It's right here. It's It's like in the stomach, and it's a constriction. The
Yeah.
meaning of when you hear the A with no line on top, it's the which is the short A. And when put in the beginning of a word, it means no, it means lack, it means not. So you can feel it means constriction, lack of, versus the long A in Sanskrit is pronounced ah. Make that sound.
Wow, look at that.
Okay.
Amazing.
Means fullness. It means
Yes,
fullness. And
absolutely.
when you're in a state of fullness and like, you actually naturally make that sound. And you
Wow.
know, so that's how the whole language is, that you can't. So the way that the traditionally, again, I learned very traditional ways, very ancient traditional ways that are completely backwards from the way we're taught in the West. And it's very hard to find things taught this way anymore, even across the globe. I literally it's hard. Even in India, it's hard right now.
Wow.
Um, but traditionally, Sanskrit was taught to very, young children. Um, and they weren't given the meaning of the words until they were 16 or 17 or 18 years old. They were just taught the pure sounds. And, you know, from that basically alignment with or harmonizing with the laws of nature and God, and they were the quote unquote definitions that came from their mind. It's like being hardwired with the laws of nature rather than the boxes that we put ourselves into. The explanations that these kids would, or the monks, if they would start their study at like 5 years old, and they were taught just these pure sounds. When my teacher, who has a PhD in Sanskrit, went over to India, she had um, a grant to go study with a traditional teacher. And she spent her first 6 months chanting the Sanskrit alphabet 8 hours a day
Wow.
because of this, like just making those sounds. It's not an idea about something that, it's like, it literally corresponds to the physical vessel, the physical body,
Yeah.
and then in the certain pattern. So then you not only the sound, but the breath also corresponds to our actual nervous system. So there is a hardwired automatic response between emotions and breath. Okay. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to think about it to do it. It's automatic. It's an automatic response. If you're in a state of anger, there's an actual pattern of breath that corresponds to that emotional state. If you're in a state of fear, there's a pattern of breath that corresponds subconsciously. So
Absolutely.
by observing these patterns, so for example, Sanskrit would take it to the actual sound. So say you're in a state of fear and there's a pattern of breath that's creating anxiety. There are actual patterns of breath that equal stillness and it's the nervous system being in alignment, and so you can sort of hack or trick your own nervous system backwards by
Wow.
forcing the pattern of breath that equals, let's say, the nervous system being in a calm centered state. You make that pattern of breath and it brings about the emotional state. Do you see what I'm saying? Where we're usually
Absolutely.
going subconsciously, our breath is reacting to our emotional state, we can start to say, no, I actually don't, I'm going to rewire the nervous system to vibrate and sing a more harmonious song in coordination with everything. And so it literally is a practice that is repeatable and that's experienceable. So like I just explained to you, that ah versus ah, and then the ooh, now you make the ooh sound. Ooh. That
Ooh.
sound lives right here in the heart.
Yeah, heart. That's a heart sound, definitely. It's warm.
Okay. And then
Ooh.
so there's another sound, and that ah sound, if you start with a deep the it really does live down here. Remember, we had to make the we had to constrict in this area of the body to make that sound The also lives down here, kind of in the stomach area. It connects and it coordinates with the lumbar spine. So when you're making that sound, it's literally resonating that part of the physical body. And then the ooh sound is resonating the thoracic, it's resonating with the thoracic spine. And someone brought up DMT. So DMT is a naturally occurring, actually, chemical neurotransmitter. It's natural in our body. It's released in our body. And the thing is that it's not very much in our modern society because everything that allows for that has been shut down purposefully. Fluoride plays a piece. So there is a gland in our brain that's located in the center of the brain. If you look down it, it's like in the center of the cross of our brain. And it's called the pineal gland. And this gland was very important in ancient times. And today, if you even talk to modern day doctors, they hardly know, they claim to not really even know what it does or what it is. There's just, so, however, if you take a cross section of the human brain, the part of the brain that is the resonance chamber that is connected to the pineal gland is shaped like the eye of Horus. It's that actual shape. That's what our anatomy is shaped like. Okay. So, and the pineal gland, which is represented many times as a pine cone, from the Vedic teachings, and also the native, I've done a lot of study with the Cherokee teachings and the Hopi teachings. They say the same thing, that this pineal gland that's in the center of the brain, when it starts to not be so stiff, and people could say it's calcified, meaning it's just sort of stiff and not functioning and not flowing. when it starts to operate in its normal, more natural state, this allows for actual release in the physical body of neurotransmitters such as oxytocin, endorphins, DMT. When this gland is operational, it releases this natural occurring chemical called DMT that allows for, let's say, receptivity, or it's almost like turning a, it's, here's how I explain it, how God has taught me to work with all of this. Our body is like a resonance chamber. It's almost like an antenna. Sometimes people allow something else to come into their resonance chamber and take up residence, which I never recommend any sort of channeling or allowing any other entity, being, anything into your space. That's your sovereign vessel that God created for you and your soul and your body and your mind and your spirit. Nothing else enters that space. And in my experience, if it's an angelic, or if it's, you know, if it's the voice of God, that will never be tried to be forced upon you. And so I picture it's like we're our sovereign child of God vessel. But then when you are able to sort of quiet down the system, or that computer of the mind that's constantly generating fear, it's like you sort of become like an antenna. So I picture it almost like these little antennas that you can then receive and communicate more clearly from other beings. But that allows for that awareness, and it allows for also, when the pineal is starts to become more decalcified, meaning back to its original way of sort of opening and closing, and more like a flower, you are able to perceive those things that are maybe beyond just the five senses, or beyond just the fight or flight reactive part of the mind. And it also allows, when these sort of three centers of the nervous system, the lumbar, the thoracic, and then the cervical spine, when they're all flowing together in a way, you know, rather than a lot of people, they'll get stuck in their fear and then try to spiritual bypass, or they won't want to go into the heart because it's too painful. But when the whole system is working as one unit, it literally creates almost like a field, an electromagnetic field in the heart. It's
Yeah.
like a torus field. It
Yeah.
literally creates like a pumping mechanism in the heart center. And so it's you become then even maybe more of a fine-tuned generator of a certain um, vibration. That's the best way I can explain it. But
Yeah. It's amazing. Beautifully explained. Really. Sounds
and
incredible.
one thing that I want to give to people as a tool. So here's the other thing, that it's so difficult with this, just like with when you're teaching. I've been so grateful to receive so many teachings about the Bible and things, and the actual legality of it, and you know, the spiritual warfare nature of it, and the weapon that we have in those words, the word of God. um that Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But when you have powerful knowledge like that, you know, that's effective and that works, there's a lot of twisting of it, or utilizing, or infiltrating. And so a lot of the Eastern teachings really have been very infiltrated. Why? Because if you understand the power of even getting people on a certain emotional in a certain emotional state just by the music that you put into the environment. You can, the beats in the music correspond, I promise you, to certain states of emotion. And it's a subconscious, it's
Yes,
creates that in the environment, in the people, in their body and their mind. Then they're repeating that, and they're putting that into their own system. And so it's the technology of how sound and light work together is, it's powerful knowledge. And for thousands of years now, it's been kept in the hands of people that know how to use it and use it as a weapon, you know?
exactly. Again, this is just highlighting how they will take, we again understand that God is the creator. Only God can create. Only the creator can create. The Lucies, as I call them, they can only emulate. They can't create. So what they do is they take what's already there and they stuff it up.
Mm-hmm.
Every frequency in its own uniqueness or its own independence, if you will, is perfect and pure. There is not one frequency, sound, resonance, nothing that is
Mm-hmm.
evil. But what man does to the frequencies, you see, so it's taking
Exactly.
and concocting it and turning it into all sorts of dodgy things. So it's not the frequency, or the language. This is such a pure, beautiful, amazing, incredible sound. I'm going to call it a sound. A technology. I'm still getting used to that. I'll get there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But just what it is, and to be able to understand how, when we align with this, we really do align with God's work in its
Mm-hmm.
purest form. I mean, I love
Yeah,
this.
it's a symphony. The whole creation is a symphony. And okay, so another thing, so these people, they know these things and they know how to mess with it. They try to mess with the God's laws of nature and God's laws of everything. So if you think of it, they're trying to hack the system in many ways and sort of reverse engineer God's laws, God's work, God's
Yeah.
divine cosmos. But so you can think of how they do it. If you have sort of the codes that underlie states, all of it. So even let's talk about the four basic elements that you learn about in all of the ancient traditions. Fire has a certain pattern to it. It has a way of being. It has a way of being. So does water, so does air, and so does earth. And those are sort of the sort of elements that you combine those things to make other things, how it's explained. So fire in and of itself is not evil, but if they, for example, will say they learn sort of the nature of fire and how it works, and then use that only, or
Mm-hmm.
either heighten it or make it really big or add
Yeah.
gasoline, but then
Mm.
they don't use it in the way that it was even designed. That's kind of how you see. So it's like they get the codes of all these different things, and then they want to make the natural processes. In nature, we go through cycles. Something's created, it's maintained for a while, and then it dissolves so the next thing can be created. There is a dissolution part of the cycle that's natural, which you might call, um you might call uh destructive, but it has its role in nature. Like the natural cycles, fire is supposed to come through the forest once a year to clean out all of the dead brush, and then that transforms into fertile soil for the forest. But so it's like the fire, the quote unquote disaster of that forest fire is actually a natural part of the cycle. But these people have, it's like they find the code to that part and they want to make it bigger, and then they want everyone just to get on the disaster frequency or something.
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah,
of what I've seen how they've done it. They'll take a piece and try to mix this piece with this piece, but they don't
yes.
really go together. And then they'll try to trick you into believing it. But the laws of nature are the laws of nature. You cannot light a piece of wood on fire with water. I don't care how many times you say, well, I believe that I can and it's my truth. No, it doesn't work that way. There are actual things that were designed by God. Like you can't just
Humanity, isn't it wonderful though? I'm sorry just to interrupt you, but I always chuckle at this because, as you say, well, it's my truth. It can, as you say, there are irrefutable laws of nature. And, working in harmony with the laws of nature are going to get us exactly where we need to be and the best results, right? But of course, human beings, of course, in our human state, we have to go against the laws of nature, right? So that's just our thing, to go against the laws of nature. So this is
yeah.
what happens when we go against the laws of nature. We end up in a merry F up all over the world, and now we've got to like try and unbum ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, really, and so what so these these things can be seen and experienced directly, and they can be replicated in the physical body. So, the Sanskrit language, for example, there's no word for religion in Sanskrit actually.
Wow.
It's just
Wow.
it's just like the observation of like, oh, we see water flows this way, and it seems to, it's, and oh, here's the sound, duh, 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 that equals this, and duh, 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 that equals that. It really is like the binary code. um and that's why in even the quote unquote separate gods and goddesses, it's really a misnomer that it's a polytheistic society. It was not at all. um it was a one creator um worldview. And
Absolutely.
the quote unquote separate gods and goddesses, if you really go and start to figure out what they actually are, here's what it is. Okay, so remember, all the Vedas are these lines of code, like the binary code. And there were these sort of laws of nature that seem to be very noteworthy or very powerful, or very just had their own sort of quality. And there is a mantra that corresponds to that law of nature. Okay, there's a mantra that corresponds to compassion, for example. And so, or there's a mantra that corresponds to wisdom. I'll use this one. Wisdom is an actual mantra. Just means, like a
Sound.
sentence in Sanskrit, multiple words together. um there's a sentence from the Vedas that corresponds to what we call wisdom. And the symbol of that law of nature is Ganapati, the elephant. But the symbol is a code for how that law of nature operates. Okay?
Okay.
It's not a separate god. It's not Ganapati, Ganesha, which is the representation of wisdom,
Yes.
is represented in symbolic form by this elephant. Okay? But it's like there's so many multi levels. If you can understand it on one level, or you can understand it on a completely different level. um
I
Ultimately, it's explained that Ganesha was born from the sun and the moon. And the sun is is representative of what's called sort of divine masculine, which means pure potential energy. It means unlimited. It's like that the spark, like this, how sunlight comes to earth and enlivens, it hits everybody on earth the same way.
Yeah.
And what you do with it and create with that light that's coming from the sun is a different thing. But the just pure potential energy is what is explained as this. And then the moon is like the actual form connected with the emotional flow of things. And it also represents the heart, or it's symbolic of that, we could say. So the decode for wisdom is connection with God filtered through the heart. You see how, so it's not literally that this elephant was the son of the, was
Yes,
born out of
absolutely.
the sun and the moon. It's like these are
Mythology.
decodes for the symbol and ultimately for the actual sound and pattern that underlies that actual law of nature.
That is so beautifully explained. It makes such perfect sense. What I'd also like to say, you were just touching on with many gods earlier on. Um, a lot of Western religion absolutely mistakenly, and I say this mistakenly, talk about Eastern philosophies and many gods. It is so wrong. It just shows how the Western, predominantly Christian, I would imagine, religion has misunderstood the East. You see, the way I see it, it's not many gods, it's one God with many faces. So God will show that face, and as you're talking about Ganesha, who's one of the Hindu deities, the elephant, who's my favorite deity, and I love the way you explain Ganesha, which is the element of the sun, which makes up that pure power. So it's that raw, masculine energy combined with that soft, watery, feminine flow, that gives it the shape and the flexibility, and as you say, and expressed through the heart center. And Ganesha is known to be removing obstacles. So when you would then tune in to these codes, right, and
Mm-hmm.
understand, be at peace with your inner being, and you understand when you're working with the deities what it truly means. So it's not many gods, it's one God expressing God's self in many different ways. So each
Yeah.
face of the deity is going to be a representation, as you say, of the entire. I mean, I've never seen it the way that you are. You're talking about the deity has the entire Sanskrit meaning enveloped
Mm-hmm.
and encoded in it, which just is that much richer with all the
Mm-hmm.
different layers. So it really
Yeah.
does give the student a lot to chew on, doesn't it? When you're studying
Yeah. It's
on Sanskrit.
yeah, and I'll explain even a little bit further on that. So Sanskrit is so specific because remember, like these sounds are so, we have this whole creation that we live in, and there's all these different sounds and lights and patterns and all of it interacting all together. Um, so here's a perfect example. Let's say in English you say the sun, the sun. There's so many different things that could mean. In Sanskrit, it's so specific. So there's a difference in Sanskrit between the light of the sun at dawn versus the light of the sun, the nature of how we experience the light of the sun at noon. There's a difference between the light of the sun at noon in the summer there's and the winter. And so that's, it's kind of like, so the quote unquote separate deities, it's like, how do you explain the sunset? Yes, it's light from the sun, but it's a whole different expression of that light, or it's a different quality, or it has a different feel to it. That's literally what the quote unquote gods and goddesses are. They are the explanation of that law of nature. and how it operates naturally, how it
I
operates.
absolutely love it because I have been also listening to some of the stuff that you sent me, and it just goes so in line with that because you were talking about the goddesses and things as well. You know, when we're looking at like Kali and Medusa, and especially these, let's just talk about the particularly scary looking ones, you know. And a lot of people say, oh, that's evil. And again, you know, it's misinformation. It really is an expression of nature. These goddesses express themselves, as you say, as nature, and the way you're explaining it now, with the different layers. And as you say, the sun at different times of the year, different times of the day, you know, makes the expression different. It's
Mhm.
amazing. It is so
Yeah,
beautiful. So it
it
really,
really is. And there's been, the thing too is there's been a lot. So it's really interesting. What I've heard people explain, I'm going to be careful with my words. Let's just say the Western version of these teachings that I've come across is not the same. So even when well, I've heard Christians say this and this and this and this, but then you actually go and study the actual knowledge, or go to India, or go to Bali, or go meet with the Cherokee elders, or go meet with the Hopi elders. It's not at all that like what I was taught that it was in my earlier year. Like, it's just not the same. There's a lot of misunderstanding culturally, through the languages, through time. Um, and and so that gets a little bit tricky too. Like, even so, let's go to the gods and the goddesses. When you actually study the science, that the gods are quote unquote masculine laws of nature. The goddesses are feminine laws of nature. Okay. The and from this, in this paradigm, in this system, the masculine laws of nature are explained as like, well, there's different ones, but that's why they create the different symbols. But it's the divine God, masculine, is very just pure loving, a pure vibration of love that is like all possibilities. That's what it is. Okay. And then the feminine is something that takes those possibilities and creates a form out of it.
exactly. Wow.
So it's
I
like, it's not a god and a goddess. It's like, it's just, just like if you have an electrical socket, there's a feminine part of the plug and there's a masculine part of the plug. Okay. It's just how that's explained. One's more receptive and one is more outward. Well, they are like the quote unquote dual energies, but they're not competing. They're meant to work together. And so even if, for example, um, there's misunderstanding even in the representations, because so Kali, for example, Kali is a quote unquote goddess that people, and she's depicted in a lot of kind of scary ways. So it's a fierce form. It is a fierceness. There's in the mythologies, it's like this age-old battle between God and the demons. And at one point in history, it was explained that all the demons had like all this power, and they created this thing called. And so the response from the angelic kingdom, basically, was to create this other thing and put like all of the most powerful things together to try to defeat the demons.
The
That didn't work.
polarization of it, right? Are you saying so let's say they created this demonic entity, so the angelics then responded by creating um, something completely beautiful, the opposite
No,
thereof.
it was like a weapon. It was explained as, so it's explained that we as humanity go through these cycles. They're called yugas, from And these are like million, 100,000 year cycles of humanity. And at certain points, it's really bright, and then it goes to more dark and more dark and more dark. And then it starts to go back up to more awake. So it's like awake, asleep, awake, asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
of humanity asleep, and then everything gets really dense and fearful and dark, and then it starts to wake back up.
Me too.
And so there was this other period of time where it was really dark, kind of like how we are now. And so it's like the story or the explanation of this law of nature that's that's called a goddess, but it's not literally a goddess, is the intensity that's needed to step forward as a warrior against the forces of darkness. So and that takes a certain intensity and like tenacity, but it's said in the Vedic knowledge that even that didn't work. So so there's this other law of nature that's called Kali, that was the weapon that destroyed the demons. Okay. And
Ah,
it's said to be a very concentrated version of all of the most powerful laws of nature. Okay. And ultimately what it was a specific vibration.
wow.
It's
Yes.
a
Yes.
specific vibration. And a lot of times depicted as like a storm, right? Because it's we as humanity are like that we're so stubborn that it takes like we're like a coconut that we have to have our heads smashed open with a hatchet to actually be able to break free of that. So
Think.
it it can be experienced as like the biggest storms in our life that look like the biggest destruction actually are opening us up to something new, to let go of the old things. So people often say, oh, Kali is like destroyer, but it's really a lot more complex than that. It's more of it. There are certain times, and if you think of the what is a storm in nature, even think of how a very powerful storm, it's all of the most powerful wind, the water comes with the wind, and it's like really strong. So it's like the most powerful forces of nature come together in a certain point that makes makes it a possible for lightning to strike. Okay. What's lightning? Think of lightning. It's high voltage energy that connects heaven to earth, that has a purifying effect on the environment. It literally purifies the air. Think of the feeling before a storm and all those things come together, and then the lightning comes. After the storm is when the rainbow comes, it's the most pure. So if you can think of people that understand these things, and they focus on Kali, this law of nature that is meant to sort of destroy all of the things that are keeping us held hostage. Sometimes sometimes God needs to come and like rip us out of our marriage, or rip us out of, and it feels like destruction, and it feels like all hope is lost, but really it's like it's that storm that comes so that you can move through those things that used to keep you weighted down, and it brings this energy of heaven to earth. It's almost symbolic of the lightning strike that allows for the old stuff that was, the fear, the sadness, the pain, the
Exactly.
trauma, to be actually sort of purified out in a way. So do you see what I mean? It's like
Absolutely.
all been so twisted.
Totally. It makes beautiful and brilliant sense what you are saying. I'm absolutely loving this. So it's such an unfolding, and it makes such sense, and we are out of time again at the moment.
Okay.
So I am absolutely so grateful to have had you for this talk again this evening. Look forward to next week, Tuesday again.
Me too.
Um, where we're going to continue these discussions. It is so exciting for me. And I think this is so important for the world to realize that, that to reveal these things that, because if you look at religion in the world, I think the biggest religion must be Christianity, right? Which has been so indoctrinated into believing that only that is right and no other way. So have therefore absolutely kept so many of these ancient secrets the sacred knowledge hidden, and literally lied to us as people so that we don't empower ourselves. So I think it's amazing that we can find this time and this place again, Andy, with people
Yeah.
like yourself that have gone to that extent to discover truth. And God bless you for that. And thank you, because it's so amazing what you are doing. And I'm just loving it. Thank you so, so much.
You're
Thank you. Thank
welcome. One thing
Yeah.
I do want to say real quick about that is that as I traveled and studied in India and all over the world, Bali, Thailand, all over other places too, um, but especially in India, because we're talking about this knowledge, they have so much love for Jesus. And they're
Absolutely.
and I don't know what the deal is. I'm just gonna say I met many, many, many people there that there's all sorts of legends and myths about Jesus visiting India during his lifetime. So I'm just wondering if there might be more to that story of the connection between some of the ancient teachings and Jesus in one way or another. I'm not making that claim. I'm just saying I heard a lot. I've a lot of times in India, how much love for Jesus and how like these stories of Jesus and in India. And so I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe
Well,
he some aware of this tech awareness of this technology and teachings as well. I don't know for sure, but the Cherokee teachings are also very similar. So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, I definitely, what I read is a lot is the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, which is the 18 missing years of Jesus's life in the Bible. So
Mm.
for me, if I was a Christian, I'd say, well, hello, where did he go? And according to what we reading, part of that time was spent in India. As well, he spent time in India. He spent time in Persia, in Greece. I think it is Greece.
Mm.
Tibet, India, Tibet, Persia. 6 places. Sorry,
Mm.
I've just hit a bit of a blank now. But all of and Egypt, of course, Egypt. So all of these amazing ancient places where he went and taught, and spent time from everything I'm learning with the monks there, shared knowledge. This is the thing. All of these guys in the ancient essence, we all vibrated on the same level.
Mm.
So religion is not a religion is the thing that has divided us. It's coming from the heart. It's understanding how do we live our best experience in these beautiful bodies on this beautiful planet Earth. And how do we get the most out of it? And these are the guys that have lived for many, many lives and many years before us, and they've figured this out. So their knowledge is really what they've passed on to us. It has nothing other to do with that. And the bottom line is, if you live in harmony, if you live in love, and if you live in peace with yourself and your fellow brethren, there is no fear. And that's what the Eastern teachings tell us. They help us to understand how the mind, the body, the spirit, the emotions work. So they give us these deities and these symbols and things so that we can understand it in bite-sized chunks. So that's the
Mm.
way I see it, and I just think it's so amazing that you're able to bring us this knowledge, Andy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there anything else you would like to maybe just say in closing?
Um, no. I look forward to yeah, I just love it because you know, um well, okay, yeah, I want to give one more thing. I do. There's part of the Sanskrit language that is really important that corresponds to the pineal gland. And it's a sound that you can make that sounds like a buzzing of a bee in your head. It's a very sacred sound in Sanskrit. It's the M with the dot over it, and it sounds like and it's this buzzing noise right here that literally has the effect to start to help to naturally decalcify. It's not like nothing in my experience that the way it was laid out for us to naturally grow. It's not a quick bypass. But I did notice, like you can even start to make that sound even for like 30 seconds, and you'll start to feel, oh my gosh, there are actual effects. So,
Isn't that called brahmacharya or something? Isn't
it's
that
called
called brahmacharya?
anusvara. It's called anusvara.
Okay,
Anusvara.
I've done it before. In fact, it
Mhm,
is the most amazing meditation. I would
mhm,
do that with some of my students, just doing the buzzing, the bee buzzing. We'd call it
mhm.
like, but I couldn't
Yeah,
remember the Sanskrit name. But wow, that is so true. That is amazing to decalcify the
yeah,
pineal
yeah.
gland.
So, that's something that um, you know, you can start to do just in little chunks. If you want to sit, listen to music, even is fine. And you can do just like even 30 seconds, and you'll notice immediately that that's why these technologies are not beliefs. You don't have to believe me. You should, it's these
Experiential.
practices are meant for you to develop your own direct connection to God and grace and your heart center. It doesn't come from me. I'm just explaining what worked for me and what didn't work. But when you can even sit for, yeah, like 30 seconds of just deep breath, and then you'll notice that the sound, it might start in the nose here, but then when it starts to come up here, when you really have the experience of it, it sounds almost like a singing bowl. It has this like kind of sound to it. But that for me has been very effective for treating anxiety. So, it's much better than a Xanax. We'll just put it much better than like you know, um, than some sort of pharmaceutical. And I'll just say that these sounds are part of how I was able to start to heal from trauma. So
Wow.
I'm sharing that experience.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know sound is obviously, the universe was created from sound. We know that. So we
Mhm.
understand that it is probably the most healing vibration that we could possibly tune into.
Mhm.
Thank you. Jan Skaggs, thank you so, so much. You're such a sweetheart. Appreciate you so, so much for buying us the latte. Love you for that, Jan. Thank you so much. Wonderful to see you, and really asking for you back. We're having Andi back. We plan to have her back every week on a Tuesday. We might vary the time because I have someone else on an alternative Tuesday, so we make it earlier and later, but we will let you guys know. But Andy's regular slot with Aquarius, Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa is on
Mhm.
a Tuesday. Evening for me, morning for you guys, but wow. So, so grateful for this beautiful woman. Wow, guys. Every now and again, I got to tell you out there, I know that I strike gold. This lady, she's gold. I want to say share and share and share and share these recordings, these videos that we do, because this is such important information for people to get out. Jan's, sorry, not Jan. Do you see Jan? Yeah, you're right in front of my face. Thank you so much. Andy is going to be definitely talking more about her Sanskrit stuff in the future. She does workshops. She does amazing stuff I'm very excited for you guys on this channel to be receiving that intel. It is very, very amazing and very beautiful. And thank you to each and every one of you for watching us again on this beautiful Tuesday. If you haven't already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe on our Soulutions channel. Find us on Facebook, BitChute, Twitter, Odyssey, Telegram. We're all over. And yeah, God bless you all. Mwah. Take good care of yourselves, and we shall see you back. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Rachel. Good evening to you. Welcome to Aquarius Rising. And I am so happy to have with me again from Australia, the lovely Rachel Vaughan. How are you, Rachel?
Lovely to see you, Chanti. I'm very good, thank you, darling. A bit cold here. My feet are a bit numb. But apart from that, I'm all right.
Likewise. And I was actually looking because I've got a jacket exactly the same color, and I was really contemplating wearing it, and even with the same color top underneath.
Oh, that's funny. That's
So
beautiful. Okay.
that was so weird because I was looking and thinking of wearing that this morning. I thought, no, hang on, it is cold, but if I wear 2 layers, I might be too warm. It was like, okay, we both got the memo.
Yeah.
But it's lovely to see that we were thinking on the same wavelength anyway. So welcome. How are you and how have you been? We did a show with you about a month ago and I really, really enjoyed that. How's it been with you since then? And what's happening in Oz?
Well, the usual corruption everywhere. I think, I don't know if I mentioned last time that we've had some confirmation on the Beaumont case from the Major Crime Department in Adelaide that
Yes.
they investigate because of the suppression order and a particular inquiry into state wards going missing and dying, which is interesting. So, I mean, with that sort of like fueled my fire because the fact that they've acknowledged that after 18 years of fighting and pushing and ridiculous, them digging up stupid places where none of my father's victims are because they've got patsies that they're trying to blame this stuff on. It's been really interesting. I feel very validated, which is wonderful. And I've been watching some of the crazy thing that's been going on. Lots of corruption sort of being exposed. At the same time, there's a lot of corruption still continuing and getting worse. It's a hell of a place to live, Australia.
Right.
But on a more personal note, I've had some wonderful validation. I've been sharing information regarding Leylines for about a year now. I've been putting it out there publicly that I can see them and the people that I teach in my courses can see them. Well, now we have scientific backup that I found. Just happened to be watching a video, something on YouTube, and this guy started mentioning cryptochromes. So cryptochromes are magnetosensors, which are heavily expressed in the human retina. And this is how insects and birds and animals navigate the world through ley lines. They follow the ley lines, the magnetic lines around the Earth. That's how they travel from one country to another. And we've known that for a very long time. Well, now it's proven that we have them. Human beings have them. We have the CRY2. It's a cryptochrome, a flavoprotein photoreceptor. And so there's an amazing article in the National Library of Medicine regarding this by Foley, Geiger, and Ruppert. And I'm just finding that's just been absolutely awesome. It's just awesome because it backs up. We have original Australians have been talking about being able to follow and see songlines and also known as dream lines. We've had the American Indians talking about spirit lines and dragon lines that they've followed for millennia. And the proof is there. And what's really interesting.
Leylines.
Yeah. So we can see ley lines.
It's called something different. Wow, that's incredible. And I think what you're saying is so amazing because it just shows again how us humans have been dumbed down, disconnected on so many levels. And as we see the way the world is going right now as well, and has been going with the use of our lovely cell phones, when people are just walking around on their cell phones all the time, so disconnected from the world and our abilities, our true God-given abilities, and the way that we're supposed to see the world, right? And the things we're supposed to be seeing. And that's really going to elevate us and elevate our consciousness again and give us rise to climbing this ladder, because we know we're living in a fallen reality currently, right? So by rediscovering the gifts, our natural God-given God-given gifts of which you speak, that's going to take us back to where these are going to be the things that actually save us, right? Save us from whatever it is this new world order is trying to take us into. So it was really beautiful, and I love to hear what you're saying, especially when you as you say, you see the ley lines, spirit lines, dragon lines, whatever, all, the ancient cultures are talking about. And I mean, I have no doubt that's also when we just look here in Africa, South Africa especially, with the Bushmen and the Khoisan, they were also seeing these things. I was trying to think now, I was trying to recall what it was that they call it, and I don't remember offhand, but I definitely remember reading about how they also see, call it the ley lines. And then they follow that. That gives them their instinctive, natural abilities to do whatever it is they're needing to be doing as well. Wow, that's incredible. That is really, really incredible. But before we go further, I want you just to recap on what your spiritual gifts have been, because as we know by now, people like yourself are taken into the system and heavily abused, yes, which is horrific, but also you guys generally have amazing gifts. And I think that is such an important thing, because I think there's a misconception that when people like yourself have been taken in, and it's like these things are implanted in you. It's never implanted in you. You are born with these gifts. The dark brethren, or the Lucies as I love to call them, they're super smart, yes. They're very uncreative, but they are smart, so they know who the gifted children are. And what they do is they really corrupt your gifts and make you, or try and manipulate you guys to work for them, as opposed for God and for the natural gift that you are to the world. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about what your natural gifts are.
So my God-given gifts are, I can remote view, I can see the future, I can predict for other people as well. I can see and read auras, I can see the ley lines. I can pick up on past events too. I can pick up on things, this is with help from spirit guides and my higher self. I can pick up on things like, I've read for clients and I've been able to see where their tattoos are under their clothing, because it shows up in the aura. Diagnose illness. I don't go into the medical intuitive stuff too often, because it's rife with issues with, everything medical has been tied down to, you've got to have a certificate for this and a certificate for that. But I can pick up on what causes problems in people, because it shows up in the aura. So for instance, cancer will show up a lurid sort of fluorescent green. Scars, surgical scars, will turn up an ugly yellow. I don't know how to describe it, except for it's ugly. It's not supposed to be there. That's not to say that surgery isn't important and necessary at times, but it's something that I would avoid unless utterly unavoidable. I've
Because the body is designed to heal itself at the end of the day. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I can also, I have had the experience of being able to get rid of attachments to make them no longer existent, which is rather wonderful, because you can send them back to source and they can't be that individual source energy that they were before. So that's their greatest fear. So once you learn how to do that, and it's really not difficult, it's the gold dust factor. I think you've mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah, once you do it a few times, they tend to leave you alone. They don't like to muck around with people who've got those sorts of abilities.
Exactly.
So, I guess to a degree reading minds, because that's what I was used for as a child, but I don't do that without permission because it's wrong. But that was something that I was utilised for as a child. Yeah, and obviously, my father chose my mother to breed with because she had abilities. Her family had abilities. A lot of the people who end up in these programs, the MK Ultra program, or just in these satanic cults, they get bred in. If the cult needs a particular line, they'll pick up somebody and they'll get handled, they'll get hypnotized, convinced that they're in love with somebody, or they just get veered into it. And then they'll breed with them to bring in whatever trait that they're looking for, whatever they want to breed into the line. Yeah, it goes across the board.
Absolutely. You hear about that so often, you know. I mean, I've often questioned in the past, it's like, did your mother not know what was going on? And I think so often, although having said that, there are certainly times when the mother is very actively participating in the abuse as well. But I also feel like that is really part of the manipulation or the control, right? That, I mean, it's very unusual for a mother to hurt her own children. I mean, in the natural events, right? But and I know oftentimes they are, as you say, hypnotized or controlled to actually do things that completely go against their grain, right?
Which you know, they're constantly studying. They want to break that mother-child bond. That is an absolute fascination with the Lucies, because they despise that love, because it's the strongest love, and because we create life, and they don't like that because they want to destroy life. Everything is inverted, obviously. So, you know, and you see that with the child trafficking, state-sanctioned child trafficking that we have so much in the Western countries. It happens in other countries as well, but it's a little bit more hidden in other countries, Eastern countries. In the Western countries, it's just right out there. You know, you've got child protection ministers who are actually part of the process. They do it openly, and they really target indigenous peoples particularly for many reasons, not least of all their culture, their knowledge about, you know, the spirit world through things like the Leyline knowledge. And, you know, it was interesting, I was speaking to someone the other day who mentioned that when the colonizers came to Australia, there was a particular area near Pine Gap, and kudos to this person, I can't name them because but they're a brilliant individual. They pointed out that Pine Gap, which is a facility in Australia that does some very, very dodgy things, was creating a gap between the pineal gland and consciousness. Pine Gap was a very interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it from that point of view before. It was absolutely on the path of this person. I'd love to give them kudos for it, but they don't want to be named. It apparently, by putting in the telegraph wires, they occluded the songlines. And they did it intentionally because the indigenous Australians were very, very powerful, and they had that was their communication channel, the songlines, and they put in the telegraph lines to occlude it in some way. And you see that all over Australia, where they put bridges in to occlude certain very important spaces where many rivers meet, and light will come into a particular portal crossing, like a ley line crossing. They'll stick a bridge in there so the light never gets in. You know, that it's very calculated and very clever. That, you know, they're trying to stop the natural energy flow. And I believe, you know, that in all, the plan is for a transhumanist agenda then to take over, for robots to take over, and to have a dead planet. But it will never happen. It's their wet dream, but it just won't occur.
Yeah, no, I agree that it won't. And I think that, which is why at the moment, I think so many of us are becoming more and more aware. You know, this really is the time of the Great Awakening. And even though when we look at things that are first awakening, it might be a little bit of a shock and people running around a bit for a while like chickens without heads. I hate that analogy, but that is kind of like what it feels like. So they don't really know which direction and just grabbing on to whatever they can. And that, of course, is also how the Lucies get their claws into certain beings. But, you know, then more and more people are actually realizing what it's about. You know, we're realizing that, you know, in this truther community, this truther movement, there's majority of stuff is actually not truth at all. It's really just playing into people's fears and telling them what they think they need to know or what they want to hear, and, you know, becoming even more pliable in the hands of these guys because they're feeding them a whole lot of crap. You know, I keep saying as well is that, you know, we are here to save ourselves. We are here to apply the teachings of Christ and the divine and God, source energy, whatever you choose to call it. There's different names for the same thing. It doesn't make it different. And when we're aligned with that energy, and when we're aligned with the Christ consciousness, there's no ways we can be out of sync. We then know the truth from bullshit, right? And we find the ones that are on the same wavelength or vibration as we are. And the more of us who realize these things, the easier it becomes. It's like, but really at the moment, there's a few people who are heading and in this direction and who are the trailblazers for that, because it's such uncharted territory, right? This whole satanic cult has been going on for many millennia, and it is disgusting. And for us to actually even make headway through that, I'm pleasantly surprised how far we've come. What is your take on that?
I am absolutely gobsmacked at the leaps and bounds that have been made in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, all this BS has been going on, really intense BS. It has woken a lot of people up. So, I don't interact with people very often that actually watch mainstream news. I very rarely get any information from anybody about mainstream news. I actually saw there's a headline today in the rag that I do get the updates. I refuse to read it, but I get the updates from. I have to keep my eye on what the so-called elites are doing in my hometown of Adelaide. The Channel 10, one of the main channels here, television channels, is going down. So, there's only like 4 or 5 channels in Australia, in my state particularly, so it's going down. So mainstream is going down. Nobody trusts it anymore. Nobody's watching it. They've lost the narrative. It's wonderful to see.
Wow.
My take is that people are waking up massively. And again, because I read auras and I see people's frequency has just gone up levels. Normally people would take lifetimes to go up a level. I've seen people go up levels in 3 or 4 years, which can take a toll on the physical body. You suddenly can't tolerate alcohol and wheat and lactose and things,
As it should, because these are all the low vibrating things, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So if anybody who's watching this has had that experience in the last 3 or 4 years, it's a really good sign you're actually going up in vibration. But I've never seen anything like it. It's so exciting. I know we're definitely coming into a beautiful golden age, and I 100% believe that, because I've seen so many children of very, very high vibration being born now, and a lot of adults getting to those higher, getting to that Christ consciousness level, that gold soul level and above. En masse, it seems that way for me, because I work with a lot of high level souls. Most people who seek out a reading or do a psychic development course are a high level soul, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Yes.
I'm lucky. I get to hang around with some really, really beautiful people, but there are so many more of us now than there were before.
Definitely. It's like we're coming out of we're hatching. Little hatchlings. I love that.
About 5% high level soul frequency in the population. That, in other countries it might be different, but what I was seeing around me 5-6 years ago, now we're looking at about 15 to 20%. That's how fast.
Amazing. Yeah. I love it. I recall going back to when I started creating my workshops, which has been more than 20 years ago now. And one of my friends, she's actually living in Australia now. And she was one of my first students. And one of the first, I used to wake up in the middle of the night and just get downloads of information. And it was like, there was no one, I've never been taught what I know by anyone on this earth plane. I don't say I've never had teachers, because one always has teachers, of course, but not in the traditional sense of the word. But I remember just sitting writing, and then I'd look and I go, wow. And I'd say to my students, I had a group of about 6 or 8 students, I said, guys, you got to test this on me. Just test this on me, please. Because it was just understanding how the mind and the body complex work. what is stored within our body at cellular level, how important our emotions actually are, because our emotions are our fuel, and that's the one thing we've been disconnected from, living in this intellectual world, and again with all this technology, and especially men being made to feel like, boys don't cry, and if you do, you're a sissy, or whatever the case might be, and I mean, that was especially big in our country as well, with these, you've got to breed this big race of men who don't feel, they just do, and war and fighting and bush wars and killing, and it's just like, oh God, no, please. So it was amazing for me, and she just said to me, Chantal, I still have my notes from then. She says, what you saw then, most people are just starting to understand now. And I went, absolutely. And it's so amazing to know and see that nothing has ever been in vain. I never stopped ever doing what my heart knew I needed to do. And it's so good to know, I mean, when I see people like yourself and a few others as well, most definitely, who've actually been on that path as well. And nothing has deterred us, despite the fact that we've had so much criticism, judgment, that sort of stuff. We know what we need to do. And that in itself, I think, is part of the Great Awakening, right? When you follow your truth and your integrity. Yeah.
Your soul purpose, what you're here for. And that's what I've also seen in the last 4 or 5 years, is people actually finding, why am I here? What is this reason for being? Why did I come here at this crazy time? Why am I at this really high soul frequency? Why do I have all these abilities? What am I supposed to be doing with them? That's one of the number one things that's, years ago, the number one thing that people would contact me for a reading would be, who's my boyfriend going to be? Or how do I meet them? Now it's, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? How do I help humanity? How do I make this, it's such a blessing, because it's such a, I prefer to do the soul purpose readings for sure.
And that's amazing, because it's like, as you say, they're reaching for something so much higher than just this like third dimensional, am I going to make money? Am I going to be married? How many kids am I going to have? I know as well, I used to have the same thing, and now it's really, how do I work? I mean, and especially, doing animal communication workshops, especially because that was one of the things I was born with, hearing the voices of the animals, and just how many people have stopped eating meat over the years, or once they've done those workshops, because they understand it's like, I have the things like, how do I eat something that speaks to me? It just doesn't, it's just in my world, it doesn't exist, and these are sentient beings. And when we're looking, for example, at the slaughterhouse industry, and yes, I know I'm not popular when I bring up this topic, but it's one big fat blood sacrifice. And, and I mean, these animals are so traumatized. When they go, I mean, I researched it, and I always say I had 4 CDs at the time of what these people were doing to these animals in slaughterhouses.
Oh my God.
It is just on another level. I mean, you can imagine when you have these, the slaughtermen who all they do is killing defenseless animals every day. I mean, you lose your soul. So you can become very, very, very violent with something that is so innocent. And so, there's other, absolutely.
What gets to me, I mean, I do eat meat. I was vegetarian for 10 years, and I do feel like a hypocrite speaking on this, because if we're going to eat animals, we have to bring them up properly.
Exactly.
I was listening to a wonderful woman called Marjorie Wildcraft recently, who was describing how we can all have a backyard, have 6 chickens, have some rabbits, breed the rabbits, give them a good life, make sure that when they pass, it's not sitting in a feedlot listening to their loved ones being murdered day in and day out for months on end until it's their turn. That is horrific. And this is the thing, Chanti, they put those abattoirs and the feedlots on the crossing of really powerful ley lines.
I was going to ask you about that as well.
The screaming, the yelling, the fear, the pain, the horror, the terror of those animals feeds into those ley lines.
And isn't it interesting that all of these places are built on the outskirts of towns or in places where the general public doesn't have access to. I always say you should send every 5-year-old child there and see what happens in a slaughterhouse. You will see very quickly how kids stop eating meat. And that will end the cycle, because it is that pain and that suffering that these animals go through in the name of ending up on your plate. And you don't even know how many hormones, how many steroids, whatever it is. Because what they're doing now is they'll feed a cow hormones and steroids. And within 3 months, it's a fully grown animal. And that's now, and of course it goes, as you say, into the feedlots, gets slaughtered. It's all tender because it's not run around and develop muscles and stuff, same as chicken. I mean, chicken should be tough, right? I mean, I know from the farm days, if you can eat a chicken, it's not generally a soft meat. The only reason it's soft is because it's had no exercise. It's been sitting like this, cooped up.
And it's usually only about 3 months old as well.
Exactly.
The meat chicken, I've rescued chickens from meat chicken factories, and they don't live very long because they're so big and heavy. Their bone structure can't hold them up.
Exactly.
It's so sad. But this is the whole desensitization that they're doing, because if we can allow that to happen to baby animals, maybe then we'll be okay with them doing it to baby people. And as we know, that's the whole plan, is that it desensitizes us so that they can do their abortion rituals and they can do all of these satanic rituals, and we're not supposed to bat an eyelid.
Well, my point on that is, it's like Andi says, and whether you like Gandhi or not doesn't matter. There's a lot of relevance in what they say, I'm just trying to think now, but we see the spiritual awareness, and I know that's not the word, of a nation by how they treat their animals, right? So when we look at how we're treating our animals, we've got a long way to go. And my point is very simply, as long as we are doing this to their babies, they will continue to do this to our babies. It's a mirror universe we live in. So we've got to realize what it is we're doing, and we've got to realize what it is that we see. And it's up to us to make the change, because when we decide to no longer support that industry, it dies like Channel 10 News.
Yeah.
The industry dies.
Yeah.
Then they stop breeding all these animals for our consumption, and in the most cruelest, harshest ways. It's terrible. Either way, I won't do it. And I appreciate that obviously each person has to come to their understanding at some point in time. But, we have to wake up to the fact that we participate, whether we're knowingly doing so or not. It's like John Perkins, I've interviewed him, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Wow. He was part of, in the early 70s, he wasn't working for the CIA or the government, but he was working for companies that subcontracted for the World Bank and the government and CIA and stuff like that, right? And they were going to third world countries, corrupting their governments, putting them into huge amount of debt so that there is no way they could pay back, so that they can usurp their resources and basically be America's biatch. And Africa is certainly one of them. And we're looking at places like Ecuador. We're looking at places like Asia. We're looking at places like Panama, the Panama Canal. You're looking, Torrijos was the one guy as well. He spoke a lot about, these guys got assassinated because of the canal, which is obviously what they wanted access to. So, and oil, Saudi Arabia was built up by America. When America built Saudi Arabia is up today to what it is because of their oil resources. They want that. So they kind of, if you guys haven't listened to or read that book yet, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, please do. I'm actually interviewing him again, hopefully on Thursday night this week. And what he says is, it's well and good to look at guys like him who were the con men, basically, and at the governments and blame them. But all of us are participating in this. As long as how many people work for the banking industry? How many people work for companies that belong to the Illuminati? How many people go to work and feed this monster every day? We all have to be accountable. And when we can look around and realize, wow, this is what I'm contributing to. Wow, this is what I'm participating in. And I'm choosing to stop that right now. That's when the world changes. So people like him are out there. They try to poison him. He had to have most of his intestine removed because they try to poison him as well. So stuff like that. And because, obviously whistleblowers like this are high value targets because they're speaking a truth which most other people aren't. But we all have to realize we are all participating in the system if we are ignorant to what we are participating in. How many people tell me, hey, you do this and you do that? I work for myself. Who do you work for? And calling us grifters because we have Patreon accounts. I'm going, well, excuse me, who do you work for? Who does your husband work for? Who does your family work for? Are you even aware? Of course, right now we all have to earn money, right?
Thank you.
But who are you? Yeah,
it's been a bugbear of mine for a while now. So if you've got a truther that goes around bitching at people and calling them grifters because they spend most of their daytime hours bringing out information and they need to support themselves somehow financially. If your truther doesn't have to do that, they're probably getting paid by the government.
Exactly.
Or maybe they're lucky enough to have a husband that works and supports them, or a wife that works and supports them, in which case they're beholden to somebody.
Exactly.
It really annoys me. It really annoys me because it's so incredibly stupid. It's just stupid to not realise that you need a roof over your head. I need one too. I understand some people working in certain situations, and we need food security. That's our number one thing. We need a roof over our head and we need food security. And we live in these sardine can housing development places where every little house is, you could walk from rooftop to rooftop. You could walk for miles. Not enough room to grow a veggie patch, not enough room to have animals if you want to have eggs from your chickens or whatever. Nothing like that. What we need is to be in places where we can grow our own food.
Exactly.
And then we are self-supporting.
Yes.
And hopefully we can pay the mortgage, bartering, selling off the food, that the extra produce that we create. I can see that coming. I really can. I can see large communities.
That is exactly what we need to be doing, and that's why we need to support our local communities. We need to support our local farmers. Farmers are the backbone of any society. And when you're looking at Africa right now, the price we are paying for apartheid, the descendants is huge. Firstly, our farmers are being murdered left, right, and center. Farm murders are horrific in South Africa. Secondly, they've now BEE, which has been installed in businesses. When your business gets to a certain level, as a white business owner, you have to give 51% of your business to an African person. You have to do it. It's law. So, everyone, we can't, there's no way, there's nothing saying, we're getting away scot-free. Everyone, we are now paying the price for our forefathers. And yes, all of us were part of the system. And yes, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. We should. Everything needs to be rectified because everyone wants some form of accountability, right? When you're looking at part of the slave trade. But there again, there were not just black slaves. Oh my gosh, when you're actually looking into history, you look at the white slaves and you look at the prisoner of war camps and stuff that was housing white people over the years and the wars and things. None of us got off scot-free. None of us, you know. We just have to get out of this victim-villain mode, because at the end of the day, that's the thing that they're banking on. I look at South Africa. We are probably the least racist country on the planet right now. We really are. And yet we are paying that price because of, a lot of the time, I'm not saying it didn't exist, it did, and it was horrific. But that was also part of the brainwashing and part of the divide and conquer that was instilled upon us. If you look at our history, and I mean, it's a long one to go into now, doesn't mean that we shouldn't be rectifying it. We should be. And I'm proud of my countrymen who are rectifying it, you know, because there's a big move to do that now. But you look at all over in the rest of the world, it's 10 times worse there, you know. But
it's everybody pitted against each other, so we're not looking at the people who are actually perpetrating the crimes, which is the top 1%.
Exactly.
You know, and we get all this bullshit about climate change, for instance. Well, who are the companies that are raping and pillaging the earth, people, the animals? They're responsible for that issue, which we know is a non-issue. I mean, I've got someone in the family who's been in weather for decades and says it's all a load of crap. So many people are coming out about it being a load of crap. It's just another way to control.
Up and DARPA, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, the colour revolution won't work either. But obviously they were perhaps part of the testing ground was Africa for you know.
Oh, yeah. We've been their guinea pig.
Hatred.
Exactly. We've been their guinea pig for, if you look at South Africa, although we're considered a third world country, let me tell you, we are as modern as every other South Africa and Namibia, because Namibia used to be Southwest Africa. It used to be part of South Africa. We are the guinea pigs here. Whenever there's new chips and things that need to be tested, new cell phone technology, honestly, our banks, we are super modern. We have everything you guys have, yet we consider the rest of Africa, yes, that's super rural. But you look at Johannesburg, Cape Town, I mean, these massive Windhoek in Namibia, these places are all super modern. And why? Because we've been used as guinea pigs since, I mean, our cars, super modern. I mean, we've got all we have been tested. And the Illuminati did come in here originally, and they have been raping and pillaging. And I'm telling you, half the reason why we are so modern is because we have so much of them living here and, you know, wanting the best out of everything, bringing the European culture here and every other Caucasian culture because it's superior. It's so offensive for me to see how African people in many ways are still treated, you know, in their own country. You know, you have people building these massive houses on the hill. I mean, there's a French guy in particular. He's literally built a castle here. And he's, maybe 1 month of the year with the best view, but he has the African people standing guard in front of his castle to make sure that other African people don't rape and pillage. I'm like, what the hell? It's just it's something so demented in society right now. You know, we have to turn that around. We really have to turn that around.
Oh, we really will, because that sort of obscene opulence will be rooted out.
It will be.
If I talk about putting it out there, making it obvious, look how much I've got. Look at my ego, my massive ego. I'm better than everybody else because of something, some creation, something that's been built that he probably didn't even have his own hand in at all. Yeah, that paradigm has passed. What they do with the indigenous in my country is absolutely horrific. The child trafficking, the numbers of, we have a very small population, unfortunately, of Aboriginal Australians, but the number that are represented in the child trafficking industry in Australia is extremely high in comparison to the baseline rate.
Yes.
You know, it's obscene and it's still being carried out. And whenever they want to roll out this or that, you know, digital ID or, you know, whatever it is, they start it on the indigenous communities. That at the moment, and this has been going on for decades, they won't give them any welfare. They take away any ability for them to eke out a living naturally how they might have done force them onto reservations, call them missions here, and then they won't give them any of the welfare that they're entitled to, because they might spend it on something the government doesn't agree with. So they can try some other experiment on. Oh,
Over
and they wonder why they bark up.
Over here as well, especially in Namibia as well, it's like they've taken the original people, pushed them into the corners of the most driest, most barren areas. They don't even allow their hunters to go out and hunt for them. The meat gets shot and it gets delivered to them. And like they've lost their spirit, because part of these, as you know, the indigenous cultures is, I mean, the fathers take their sons out to hunt, right? That's what they do. And I mean, that's the kind of thing I can be okay with, because the way they hunt is so different to the way that these freaking trophy hunters come here on the back of their trucks with their high-powered guns and blinding animals in the middle of the night. And, oh my God, no.
It's not like that. It can be quite a spiritual thing, because in some cultures they actually call the animal in.
Yes.
And they believe that the animal actually gives up its life.
That's exactly what the Bushmen do. They'll do like this fire dance, and they sing and they pray and do whatever, and then the spirit of the animal would then come, and then they know that animal has agreed to be its food, to be their food. And then when they go, that's the spirit that they follow, and they have the ways to do that. But I want to ask you definitely about the Leylines, because I know you're doing a lot with that now. So I'd love to know more about the Leylines in Australia. What are you seeing? What are you noticing? You're doing workshops and courses and things on that as well. So yeah, share with us on that, please.
Well, number one thing, they are visible. You can see them. They tend to present, the ones that I see the most frequently are usually roughly about 2 meters across. And when you stand within the ley line, they actually present as a perfect circle in nature. So you'll see this perfect circle against a natural background. When I first started photographing them about 10 years ago, I was really perplexed as to what I was seeing. I have taken photographs from different devices, a handheld camera, phone cameras. The lines still appear. I go back to the same places, take the photographs, they're still there. And what I've found over the last year and a half of teaching these courses is that other people can go out and find them too with their own devices. They do seem to sort of really stand out when you take a photograph. Certain times of the day, dusk and dawn, they seem to stand out even more clearly. Animals will show them to us. One of my course members took the most fantastic photograph of a dingo in a ley line, and the dingo is dead spot right in the center of that ley line. You cannot miss it. And he's staring at my course member, Jim, as he's taking the photograph. And later, I didn't share this because it was such a private thing, but he's allowed me to speak about it. He actually had a fire, and you could see one of the logs looked exactly like a dingo's face in the fire. So he was one with that spirit, with that animal.
It just gave me chills throughout. Wow. Yeah.
Jim, a standout as far as a course member is concerned, because he also took photographs of an eyrie and eagle nest, and they nest in the crossing, very powerful crossing of ley lines. So again, birds, insects, animals, and us, we can navigate using these lines. Original Australians call them songlines and dreamlines. American Indians call them dragon lines and spirit lines. The American Indians based their medicine wheel, which is a circle, around their song lines or spirit lines. What's really interesting is a lot of this information's been lost along the way. I read a book by a gentleman called Alfred Watkins. This was published in 1925. He had a vision one day looking out over a hill, and he could see all the ley lines glowing like wires across the countryside. So then he wrote a book, and he did his very, very best to point out all of the signposts of where the ley lines are that the Romans and pagans had placed there, or peoples before them. So you've got all these markers, particularly through the UK, but you see them here in other countries as well, and in Australia. One in particular of those markers is the mark trees. Now, a ley line shows itself because plants and trees try to avoid growing within it. The frequency is uncomfortable for them, or they just avoid it So this is why you get these beautiful long corridors that if you're standing within one, you can see this perfect circle in nature. Tree boughs will go around it. You'll get these beautiful arcing tree branches. When trees do grow within them, however, they are very tortured looking, misshapen. They can actually look like they're spiraling, and they're called marked trees. So in 1925, Alfred Watkins has a whole chapter describing these marked trees. The book that he wrote is called The Old Straight Track. There are also marked stones. A lot of the stones, unfortunately, were sacrificial stones, and that takes me to part of the reason why I want to share this information with people, because dowsers can find them, but you don't need to learn to dowse. That's a technique. It's a wonderful technique, but you don't need to learn it. You can see these things. And as I said before, we've got these magnetoreceptors heavily expressed in the retina to find them. You can go out and find a ley line and you can reprogram it. And the reason why I want to share this, and I have a project with a gentleman called Ben Hawkes, a dear friend of mine, called Lay Love Down, www.leylovedown.com. We want to encourage people to go out and sing into the ley lines with positive, loving intent for freedom for the earth from these dark souls.
That just gave me chills. That just gave me chills. Yeah. Explain
so sacrificial stones, this is where they've been sacrificing people, Chanti, for millennia on the ley lines to program the earth for misery and death and torture. This
Makes
is why
perfect sense.
before, the abattoirs are in the crossing of these powerful ley lines because they are programming for misery. We can change that. We can actually, this is a way of saving the world, in my opinion. And that's our motto, save the ley lines, save the world. If we can get large numbers of people going out and putting their beautiful positive intent, beautiful high resonance frequencies, 432 hertz, tuning forks or singing bowls or just intent for freedom, meditate, sing, bring that higher frequency into the lays. We're going to win this energetic war very quickly.
I've no doubt about that. What about ley lines makes it so powerful, and what are they? I mean, I understand it's obviously certain crossings and certain frequencies of energy that interplay with each other at certain places, but maybe explain to the layman about the ley line.
So I'm not a geobiologist, but from what I understand from giants in this field like Rory Duff and Alfred Watkins, it's a magneto expression of the Earth's frequency coming through in, it's like it escapes through. So it's something to do with the tectonic plates and the way that they change, but the ley lines are everywhere. But Rory Duff describes in his book, which is a guide to ley lines, earth energies and vortexes, that there is scarcely a square kilometre on the face of the earth that doesn't have at least one of these lines in it. They are literally everywhere. So it's not just on the fault lines, but it's the magnetic resonance. And in my opinion, it's fifth dimensional. So it's the repository of the Akashic record. It's where souls come in and out. When we die, we go into a ley line and we go to whichever dimension we belong into. When we were born, we come from the ley line into the mother's stomach.
Makes sense.
It's also part of the Earth's chakra, meridian, and soul system. We live on a living planet.
Yes.
So that's it, soul. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So in your workshops and courses, what is it you teach people to do?
I basically teach them the techniques of being able to find them and being able to ascertain whether or not what you're looking at is actually a ley line. So one fascinating thing that I love to teach, and these are some of the photographs that I've taken and many course members have taken and shared with me, you will get what Alfred Watkins has described in his book, The Spirit of the Countryside. So in Alfred Watkins' book, it's called Genio Terra Britannia, which is the spirit of the British countryside, which the pagans and Romans used to dedicate their ritual spots to. When the Catholic Church came in and took over, they would use those ritual stones, those mark stones. And every church in the UK is in a crossing of ley lines. They're on the old Roman pagan sites, and they actually depicted this spirit of the British countryside, which they call the Green Man, in the churches. They needed to do that to encourage the pagans to actually come into the Christian church. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone in there. So you can see this is what people used to worship or used to communicate with. And the number, so psychology calls it pareidolia, which is supposedly some nebulous, appearance of a humanoid face or an animal face in nature. So you'll see the trees will present a humanoid face, or within a bush, or you'll see these faces. Now, that's a really interesting phenomena. But when you see that the frequency of those faces appearing within the ley lines as opposed to everything outside of the ley lines, it goes against chance. It's unbelievable.
Makes perfect sense.
It's spirit speaking. It's spirit showing us the ley lines. It's spirit saying, this is significant. Pay attention. There's something to be learned here. And this is something that's been lost, not to indigenous people, but of us. Yeah.
All of us, because I think we all have these abilities. All of us have them. It's not just certain cultures or certain people that have them. We all have it. We're living in the fallen reality right now, and we all used to have these abilities before the big fall, so to speak. So it's really about reclaiming that. What I want to ask you, we talk about, let's say, slaughterhouses and stuff being on certain ley lines, etc. Would it be accurate to say that the ley lines are kind of neutral? So you can turn them into a positive or a negative effect, or are there positive ley lines and negative ley lines? Or is it just ley lines? Yeah.
And I get this one a lot. So there are Hartmann and Curry lines, which tend to be quite small. They're roughly 4 to 12 inches. I think that's what Rory says in his book. I really recommend people read Rory Duff's book, by the way, because they'll get, he's mapped it. Like, he's got, details on how to find them, what they are, how big they are, as far as dowsing is concerned. So the Hartmann and Curry lines are negatively affecting.
Right.
But only over long periods. So you wouldn't want to sleep within a Hartmann or a Curry line for long periods. And it can take years for it to actually have a negative effect. I really think that most people don't really want to be living in a house that's a crossing of powerful ley lines in general, because it's like a train station for all the different dimensions. You are going to get so much activity in that house if you're in that position. So, I mean, this knowledge needs to be known so people don't build their houses in a crossing of ley lines.
Right, I agree.
If you're going to sleep well, you're going to have, it's a bit like sleeping over a stream of water that can also disrupt you energetically and drain you. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So, which has been amazing. That the course before the last one, I'm actually teaching one at the moment, but the March course, I had a huge number of people in the class that actually had a ley or a portal crossing in their backyard. That's how frequent they are. It's amazing. Yeah, it blew my mind. I think that was just a lesson that all those people on that particular month decided to come in, so that it was like, hey, it can happen in your backyard too. Quite incredible. And also surprising number of people with the same names came in. We had multiples of several names in that course, which is also uncanny.
So it's like a duplication, replication. Yeah. Amazing. So are you teaching your courses online? Is it just in Australia? Are they live? Are you teaching them online?
I've been blessed with quite a few overseas participants. So the one I'm teaching at the moment works well for people who are in the UK. The one I teach in July will be good for, New Zealand, Canada, America, and Australia as well. It just depends, because UK and America often they don't work well because different times of the day. People all over the world, which has been a blessing, absolute blessing.
Well, you must let us know when you're teaching your courses and we can advertise it and just put links. Are there links and stuff? But I think what we must do is just give me some of the links and stuff, and then I'll put it in the description area of the show. I mean, of the video, and then we can. And if people want to contact you, then they can. Wow, that's amazing to know. And I think it's such important, valuable information right now that we have.
I teach about energetic protection as well, and how to read auras, and also, quite a bit about finding your soul purpose, because I think that's really important at the moment, and negating old soul contracts that no longer serve you, because a lot of people that I have coming into the course have seen, me talking about, Freemasons and that. Freemasons tend to curse their family lines. So some of what I teach is how to negate those old curse energies and get rid of them, which is now is the time to be doing that. We're in a point now, I believe, where we're at the end of I believe we have 26,000 year incarnation cycles where we reincarnate over and over and over again during that period and get to the highest frequency we possibly can. And, many other ancient cultures believe this as well. I believe we've come to the 25,000 year mark. We're coming into 1,000 years of golden age. That's my personal opinion. We are no longer beholden to soul contracts. So what we're doing now is we're finding, well, I'm not beholden to my old karmic debts anymore because I've got to this very high level and I've got to this point. What do I want to do with my time now? How do I want to go into this golden age? What am I going to teach people? Because I think we're still in a war, but we're at that education and healing point at this stage. Right. For those that are at a high frequency, we need to show the way for people, like you said before, that are working for the man, that are working for these companies, that are working for the banks, to have the courage to say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to find what I'm supposed to be here to do, and I'm going to follow my heart and my gut. Go for it. Do what's right.
Right. Absolutely. I'm just writing negating.
So www.6science.com. That's where people can find my, but I'll send you the links, darling.
Yeah, so that's fine. Okay. I think that's so important because I think, so people can contact you if they want to help or join your courses or anything. Wow, really, really fascinating and wonderful information as always. And I think we're coming up to an hour mark now. So is there anything that you maybe want to just say in ending off today's show? And I definitely would like to have you back again because I think there's so much that we can still discuss. It'd be great to have you in future as well.
Love to come back, Chanti. Yeah, parting comment would be don't let the fear porn take over, because that's if you're trying to get to a higher frequency, and that's what we need, more and more people to anchor this very high frequency here on earth. If you're getting caught up in the fear porn, it's going to bring your frequency down. It's exactly what those who are pumping out the fear porn want you to do. You've got to let it go. You've got to be aware of what's going on, but don't let it drag you down. Keep having hope, because we're coming into a golden age. We literally are.
Absolutely.
Times ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. And fear porn is absolutely, there's so many people that are sucked into that right now. Let us not be one of those. And as you say, be aware of what's happening. But at the same time, you've got to keep your frequency high so that you don't get drawn into that. Be one of those that is actually helping someone out of it as opposed to being pulled back into it, because it's very easy to go either way. Yeah, right. Yeah. Interesting times indeed, Rachel. Thank you so much. Really, as always, I've enjoyed having beautiful discussion with you. Look forward to having you back again in the future. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And we will definitely, this is a recording, so I'm going to put it up pretty soon in the next day or two. Not that you know that we're recording, but anyway, it will be going up this week, still on Aquarius Rising Africa. And Rachel, it's such a pleasure having you. Take care, everybody. God bless you all, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers, Rachel. Thank you.